these are the best heroes that you should be pocketing in Season 2. I'm going to explain how I split this tier list, and then as we go into each hero, I'm going to describe the playstyle of that hero and the pros and cons of pocketing that said hero. Just a reminder that for Season 2 there is a different DPS passive, which is faster reload time upon elimination. Now let's get into how I divided this tier list. So S means must pocket. No matter the comp, I will be spending most of my match with this person. In A tier, we have heroes that do high damage consistently. I will talk about consistency a lot in this tier list because a lot of heroes can do a lot of damage, but they're not consistent with it. Now in B tier, we have heroes that are really good, but just a bit less consistent than those heroes in A tier. C tier is sort of similar to B tier. C tier are heroes that are range dependent, so think close range heroes, brawl heroes, melee heroes. Because they're range dependent, you wouldn't want to pocket them the entire game. In D tier, you have heroes that you normally wouldn't be spending a lot of time with, but if they use a key ability, you should switch to damage boost them. So just remember that because a hero is lower on the tier list, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should ignore them. You shouldn't ignore anyone actually, unless they're in the last tier, which is, for legal reasons, a joke. My point is the worst damage boost target is no one. Just because someone is lower on this tier list doesn't mean that you shouldn't pocket them, it just means that there's probably someone better to pocket. Also remember that this tier list is really dependent on the DPS meta. This list will obviously change depending on how often that hero is likely to be played. Anyway, let's talk about the heroes in S tier. They are Pharah and Echo. Now you may be thinking, Pharah and Echo, they're not even played right now. What about Sojourn, Ashe, all the other oppressive hit scan heroes? Pharah and Echo are not the strongest heroes right now, but they are the heroes that cause Mercy to change up her playstyle and priorities the most, just because of how crucial it is to pocket them. Given that Pharah, Echo, and Mercy are the only flying heroes, no other hero, in my opinion, really shifts Mercy's priorities, playstyle, and positioning this much. Mercy is hands down the best support to pocket flying heroes. That's her main niche at higher play and in pro play. For example, in the past season of the Overwatch League, the only time Mercy was ever played was if they also had an Echo. Pro play aside, it still really is important for the average Mercy player to pocket Pharah and Echo. Together, you can make space from angles that no one else can. You can go for squishies in their backline and put a bunch of pressure on their DPS, forcing the team to either split their focus on killing you two or the rest of your team. It can be a really oppressive combo that propels your team to a win. I have Pharah put ahead of Echo because, in my opinion, Pharah needs more help than Echo. Echo has burst damage in her stickies, a faster shift ability to escape, and if she's in trouble, she can use her ult to duplicate and gain more health. Pharah, on the other hand, she doesn't have a lot of burst damage besides her ult, where she is completely still and dies like 9 times out of 10, and her only escape ability is her boop, which isn't as reliable as Echo's shift. Now for the cons, if you have a Pharah or Echo that isn't aggressive enough, not taking angles or pulling off kills, it can feel like your team is playing a 3v5. If they have a good hit scan that can quickly shut down your combo, it can be very difficult to get value. Good Pharah and Echoes can find creative ways to shut down their hit scan, but it's not always reliable to keep doing that. For A tier, I still only have 2 heroes. I don't know, maybe my expectations are a little too high, but I have Ashe and Sojourn. It's no surprise that going into Season 2, Sojourn, even with her multiple nerfs, is still very strong. She can now charge her railgun faster, which can be charged even faster with damage boost. They try to take her one-shot away, but she can still one-shot with damage boost. Ashe has always been really great paired with Mercy, but now with the DPS passive reducing reload time upon elimination, it's even better, as Ashe had quite a long reload time. On top of that, they both have AoE abilities which help them charge their ults faster. Sojourn's Disruptor Shot now no longer slows, but is still great to damage boost, and Ashe's Dynamite, as always, is important to damage boost. Both abilities are really annoying by themselves, but it becomes even more annoying for the enemy to deal with when they're damage boosted. I'd argue that Ashe's ult is better than Sojourn's. Bob in a 5v5 is really oppressive, especially if the enemy doesn't have sleep, and it creates a lot of pressure. Sojourn's ult is still good and good to pocket, but the Sojourn has to still be accurate with it. In terms of playstyle, you usually be poking at the enemy from range or going on off angles for some kills. Sojourn can play at a closer range than Ashe, and Ashe's hipfire is still strong, but most of the time you don't want to find yourself at close range with the enemy and want to rotate away from the enemy. They're both great to pocket at any range though. All their abilities are good to pocket. They both have strong ults that can be good to pocket as well. Now it's just an issue of who should I prioritize if I have both on my team. I currently have Ashe before Sojourn for the same reason that I had Pharah over Echo, and that's because I feel like Ashe needs a little more help over Sojourn. Even with a 1-second nerf to slide, Sojourn's slide is still more reliable as an escape tool over Ashe's coach gun. However, I think choosing which hit scan to prioritize is very situational, especially because now Sojourn can one-shot someone with damage boost, but Ashe cannot. Something to take into account is damage boosting their AoE abilities. If you watched my damage boost guide, you know that you can damage boost Ashe's dynamite only when she fires it, but Sojourn's disruptor shot can be damage boosted as long as it's active. So if I have both on my team, often I'll start with damage boosting Ashe at the start of the game to get that initial dynamite damage boosted, then switch to Sojourn to damage boost her disruptor and to charge her railgun fast and potentially get a kill. I'll try to keep track of when Ashe wants to throw her dynamite and pocket her when she does. Most importantly, I'll try to see which DPS has the better sightline on the enemy. I'll also try to see which DPS is generally doing better. Maybe damage boosting Sojourn is better in theory for kill potential, but if my Sojourn is doing worse in comparison to my Ashe, I'll try to prioritize Ashe a bit more. If the enemy has shields, I'll prioritize Sojourn, as Sojourn can gain some railgun charge off of shooting the shield. There aren't many cons to pocketing them. They're almost always in a safe spot for you to pocket from unless Sojourn slides into a crazy off angle. Either way, both DPS are very good to pocket for consistent damage and pressure onto the enemy. Now for B tier, heroes that are good, just less consistent in their damage output. The first hero might surprise you, it's Genji. It's pure bias that I have Genji first. I play in Asia region and people love playing Genji here. There is a Genji in almost every single game I play, and people are generally very good at Genji. So I've gotten quite accustomed to pocketing Genjis. Genji pocket was really good in season 1 with the speed boost passive, and he kind of suffers right now because he was nerfed because of the passive, and the nerf on Genji wasn't reverted back even when the passive was changed. So while he isn't as good as before, a pocketed Genji in my opinion is still pretty good and can be really annoying. In terms of gameplay, he has a ton of mobility and it can be super annoying to deal with when pocketed. A good Genji will dash with the dash melee combo and with damage boost can reliably one-shot someone that way. Also, if he dashes through a bunch of people, he can gain a lot more ult charge with damage boost. In lower tier play, people have a lot of trouble accurately hitting people who are jumping over their heads, and when you add a pocket on top of that, it just makes him harder to kill. Pocketing his deflect is really good too. It does a lot of damage if he deflects something like Sojourn's disruptor shot, so that's great in helping him build his ult as well. If you don't have an Ana on your team, if Genji blades, his blade is always your #1 priority. Even with Nano, I'll try to pocket blade just for faster kills or to more reliably go through Lucio or Zen ult. I will almost always Valk for Genji's blade if I don't have an Ana. That's how important I think it is to pocket his blade, because it is likely how you will win that team fight. The biggest con to pocketing a Genji is consistency. Genjis that only try to farm ult from a distance can't consistently output the same amount of value as, say, Ashe or Sojourn. A good Genji will be aware that they have a mercy pocket and utilize it by being hyper aggressive. On the other hand, it might be really hard to pocket a Genji if they're too aggressive, pulling you too far into the enemy team. So it's hard to strike a good balance. In fact, I'd say if you aren't in the Asia region, or if you know you're just playing a tier where Genjis aren't going to be utilizing that pocket, I'd lower Genji into the middle of B tier. Just try to remember to pocket his ult. The next three are going to be heroes that I consider to be in a similar rank, so they can go in any particular order. First up is Cassidy. Cassidy has always been a solid hero from Mercy to damage boost and is slightly better with the reload buff. It's likely that he'll always be in range for you to pocket, and the biggest plus is that his annoying magnetic grenade can be damage boosted and is often a free kill. The biggest con to pocketing Cassidy is his fall off damage. He has fall off damage and is most effective at mid range, so even if you damage boost Cassidy, if he's dueling from range against Ashe, Sojourn, or Widow, he is at a disadvantage. Next is Bastion, and as bronze of a take as this may sound, I honestly wish I saw more Bastion. He does a ton of damage in turret form, and his grenade is great to damage boost. I just think Bastion's a funny hero to pocket. A Bastion usually plays at a safe angle for you. It's pretty straightforward. He'll go into turret form and you damage boost him. With Kiriko being meta, it's likely that you'll have a Kiriko on your team, and a damage boosted Bastion in Kitsune Rush is terrifying. The cons of a Bastion is that he's not great to damage boost out of turret form, and he has low mobility, especially in turret form, so he's pretty killable. Soldier is a solid hero to pocket with the same kind of qualities as Cassidy in terms of pocketing. He'll likely always be in range, and Helix rockets are good for him to damage boost. Visor is great to pocket as well, especially with Nano or Kiriko ult. There's not much to say about Soldier in terms of gameplay, as he's rather straightforward. The cons of pocketing Soldier is that even with damage boost, he lacks kill potential and sometimes may position out of range. A pocketed Soldier can put out a huge chunk of damage, but nowadays with so many high healing heroes and other one-shot heroes existing, just outputting a ton of damage isn't good enough. Soldier lacks the same kill potential as Ashe and Sojourn. Even with damage boost and his ult, his damage output just isn't always reliable. That's why some people have adopted this hyper flank playstyle of playing Soldier, where they will go on these wild flanks to get kills, which may result in Soldier just being out of range for Mercy to pocket. Next, we have Hanzo and Widow. Both are okay to damage boost. Hanzo's storm arrows are good to damage boost. A lot of people still think that Widow is bad to damage boost, but that's just not the case anymore. I'm not going to go too much into why you should damage boost Widow. Basically, it reduces her scoped in time and does a ton of damage to tanks. If a Widow is dueling another Widow and jumping around like this, damage boost can help reduce the scoped in time, which can help your Widow a lot. In terms of cons though, both are rather unforgiving heroes when it comes to aim, so the DPS have to be accurate. Both of their ults can't be damage boosted, and Widow's Venom Mine can't be damage boosted. Neither of them benefit from the reload time buff. So the biggest con is just consistency, accuracy, and lack of boostable abilities. It's pretty unforgiving and requires them to be consistent. For Widow, the biggest con is her positioning. You don't want to give away her positioning by beaming her, so you have to be aware, does the enemy already know where she is? Also, if she's positioned all the way in the backline and you commit to damage boosting her, it might turn out to be a mistake, as your team may need more help in the front line and now you can't reach them. Next up is Junkrat. Junkrat is one of my favorite heroes to damage boost just because of how goofy he is. He can one-shot a Tracer with damage boost. I always think it's so funny if I'm damage boosting a Junkrat while he's just standing there spamming at a choke and we happen to one-shot someone. Junkrat already does a ton of damage by himself, but pocketed, it can be pretty lethal. Pocketing Junkrat is pretty straightforward. Junkrats will usually play in range unless he decides to mine into their backline to try and go for a kill. The cons of pocketing Junkrat is just consistency. Sometimes Junkrats will spam into spaces where people may go and not actually be going for damage or kills, just going for space denial. So pocketing him while he's doing that may not be the best use of your time. And unless you have a Junkrat one trick on your team, some people who play Junkrat may not be able to be as accurate with his mines or primary fire, and that results in a lack of consistency compared to other hit scan heroes. Orisa has shown to be a rather strong hero with Doom out of the picture now. She is one of the only tanks with good damage at long range, and you can damage boost all her abilities. Her ult is great to damage boost, and she can output quite a lot of damage. The con is kill potential. You may be contributing to a lot of damage, but Orisa just doesn't carry the same kill potential as other heroes in this tier. I have Zarya next. We all know that when high charge, damage boosted Zarya is lethal. If you don't know, Zarya gains more charge the more people shoot her bubbles. And if you're prioritizing a Zarya that game for whatever reason, you know you'll be in a safe spot with the rest of the team, and the Zarya can bubble you if you get in trouble. Zarya isn't as strong in season 2 after her nerfs, and I'd say a con to Zarya is that not a lot of people are picking Zarya anymore. Another con is that when Zarya is in high charge, pocketing her is just not really worth it. Zarya has a lot of self-sustain with her bubbles, the other support is likely keeping her up, so it isn't crucial to stay with her to keep her alive. Plus, it might be more worth to switch to a long-range hero instead of pocketing Zarya at the start of fights, because while she does have right-click to spam at range, she is still best at mid to close range and suffers against long-range heroes. So while she's great to pocket at high charge, the issue is just damage output consistency. Zen is basically like another DPS with his very high damage output and Discord Orb. He can pretty consistently get damage done as long as the Zen player is not hyper-focused on charging his right-click the entire game. So if you happen to be in a game where neither of you DPS are playing good pocketable DPSs, Zen is a great choice to pocket. The cons are the situations of actually pocketing a Zen are pretty low. First of all, no one is really picking Zen anymore. If they do pick Zen, you're likely to be pocketing someone else anyway, or healing before you get the chance to pocket Zen. Next I have Sig. Sig does a ton of damage. He is a really underrated damage boost target. He is just not picked that often. He is picked for Circuit Royale, and that's kind of it. So he's great to damage boost on Circuit Royale, but then if you're playing on Circuit Royale, you're probably going to be playing with Sojourn or Ashe, which are better targets to damage boost over Sigma. So that's why he's not higher up. A new hero that I added recently is Ana. Ana actually got a big damage buff now. She can now 2-tap a Tracer. Damage boosting an Ana is quite underrated, but situational. Usually at the start of games, an Ana will throw her nade into the enemy spawn, and damage boosting that is great for ult charge. If your team has no long range hero and only Ana can contest a Pharah, damage boosting her while she shoots a Pharah is really effective. If both of you are the last ones alive and you're running away, damage boosting Ana can be great in getting an exit kill. The cons are Ana is going to be doing the brunt of healing on your team, so there's not many chances where you get to damage boost her. Ramatra is lower on this tier due to his inconsistent damage at long range. He also doesn't do a ton of damage at close range with his punches either. You can damage boost all his abilities, including his Vortex. However, Ramatra is not really worth damage boosting unless he's in his ult, which is really funny to damage boost. It's kind of like spectating in a Gario match. It's likely that the other healer would be healing him more anyways, so he doesn't need a ton of help. I guess it would be good to help him build up his ult charge, since he is kind of there just to farm his ult, but he just doesn't carry enough kill potential for it to be worth pocketing. Next is C tier. Heroes that are good to damage boost but are limited by range. First up is Reaper. Reaper is not as strong as he was in season 1 after the speed buff passive was removed, but he is still very strong to damage boost at close range, and he has good self-sustain with his Wraith form. If they're running dive for some reason and Winston keeps diving your backline, Reaper is great to damage boost. He's also rather good to damage boost against a Hog who tries to get too close. His ult is great to damage boost as well. The cons is just his damage consistency because of his range. Since he's limited by close range, it's not a good idea to be damage boosting Reaper all the time. Mei is next, and I will say Mei definitely took a hit with the speed passive being removed as well. Mei is rather underrated though, with her primary fire that doesn't need aim doing a ton of damage. Her icicles have no fall off damage, so if you have a good Mei, damage boosting her at mid to close range can absolutely delete someone. The issue again is consistency. On paper, she is not limited by range, but her icicles lack in consistency because you have to have a player who's really accurate and practiced with Mei's icicles to be able to do consistent long range damage with them. And not a lot of people play Mei, so the chances of you getting a player like that is pretty low. So I have actually moved Junker Queen up since there has been a new patch which has buffed her a lot. Basically, her Carnage or Axe Swing cooldown can be refreshed. It was bugged, so she could refresh it by hitting friendly objects, turrets, or environmental objects, but that was fortunately patched out. Her Jagged Blade impact damage was nerfed, but the wound over time damage to the blade was buffed. Her passive Adrenaline Rush was buffed, so basically Junker Queen's passive lets her heal when she applies her wound damage over time effect. Now she can basically burst heal herself when an enemy dies with wounds on them. With damage boost, you can actually help Junker Queen heal herself more, and the burst heal with damage boost is really nice. This may be a hot take, but I actually think it will be quite viable now to be pocketing your Junker Queen, because with heals and damage boost, you can help make your Junker Queen unkillable and deal a ton of damage. Remember, as long as the wound effect is active, you can damage boost it. The biggest downside to damage boosting Junker Queen is her range and kill potential. Sure, she can throw her knife from far away and you can damage boost that wound over time effect, but it would be much more worth it to damage boost someone that has a higher kill potential when you're at range. At close range and during her ult, Junker Queen can be a good damage boost target if there's no one else with a high kill potential at range. The next one may surprise you. It's Reinhardt. Reinhardt has 2 fire strikes now, so damage boosting both is really good. But if you ever find yourself in a scenario where your Rein is in a Rein versus Rein matchup, especially if the enemy team has a Lucio and you don't, damage boosting his swings is really underrated as he's able to get his ult shockingly fast. The cons are, well, there's not a clear downside, it's just that there's probably better people to damage boost at the moment. Damage boosting a Rein is pretty situational, and Rein is not played that much nowadays, so the chances of you being in a Rein versus Rein matchup is pretty low. Next, I have Brig. I honestly think Brig is pretty underrated. First of all, if you're running a Brig on your team, it's absolutely crucial for you to pocket her and keep her alive. Make that your top priority, especially because she can do a bunch of healing when brawling. Apart from that, she can actually do a lot of damage at close range, and with a pocket, she can farm her ult fast and become a lot more survivable. The cons are, well, Mercy Brig is not an ideal comp to run, and for the average player, Brig is hard to get good value out of. Sim is known as one of the worst DPS, but honestly, if Sim is able to get more charge with her beam, and if you didn't know, her primary fire gains charge like Zarya's beam, she can charge her beam off of shields, Sim absolutely melts through people. If they're running something like Winston, Sim can melt Winston with a pocket. And that's about it to pocketing Sim though. You can't damage boost her turrets, her ult obviously can't be damage boosted, her TP can't be damage boosted, and she kinda sucks at long range. It's time for D tier. Heroes that are very important to damage boost in key situations or when they use a specific ability. Hog is the first one in D tier strictly because of his hook. With Hog being quote unquote meta, it is now even more important to damage boost his hook shot melee combo to help confirm easy kills. If you have a Kiriko, damage boosting his ult during Kitsune Rush can be quite nice too. There's not much else to it. Hog is very limited by range, so outside of his hook, there's probably someone better to pocket. Next up is D.Va. It's essential to pocket D.Va when she's in baby D.Va mode and is trying to build ult to get her mech back. She does do a ton of damage at close range as well, so if she boops someone into your team or she's trying to peel for the backline, it may be worth it to damage boost her. Other than that though, there's probably someone better to pocket. Tracer received a buff in season 2 and is quite strong. If I see a Tracer 1v1ing another Tracer, I'll try to pocket my Tracer to give her an advantage. During Valk, damage boosting a Tracer and their backline can be really good too. But the cons of pocketing Tracer is range. Tracer usually plays out of range for Mercy, so it's not always easy for Mercy to damage boost her. As people have gotten more accurate with Kiriko, she has become more worth it to damage boost as her kunais do a ton of damage. There have been a couple of times this season where me and Kiriko are just running for our lives and Kiriko managed to get an exit kill with the damage boosted kunai. The con is her consistency. She can't output enough consistent damage to warrant pocketing her the same way I would pocket a Zen. I have Moira next. Most people know that damage boosting Coalescence is a must, as it pierces through everything and can put a ton of pressure on the enemy. However, damage boosting her when she throws her orb can be quite useful for her ult charge, and if they have a Genji, damage boosting her when he uses deflect is really good for zoning him out. Damage boosting her when she's trying to get flankers in general is good. However, like D.Va, other than these situational moments, there's not much else to it. She's a medium to close range hero, and she has good survivability, so for the most part, it's not important to prioritize Moira over other high damage heroes. Baptiste is able to do more consistent damage than Kuriko and can be really good to pocket when he uses his exo boots in the air and spams his primary fire into the enemy team. Like Ana, he's a great choice to pocket if there's a flying hero and nobody else on the team can contest them. The issue is Baptiste doesn't see as much play compared to Kuriko and also lacks in consistency due to his heal shoot playstyle and fall off damage. While damage boosting his primary fire is good, he's likely to weave in healing in between his shots, which Mercy can't amplify, which makes her blue beam less efficient when damage boosting him. When I first made this tier list, Doomfist was at the top of D tier, as you could get decent value out of damage boosting his high charge punch and slam. Doom does need a little bit of help when he goes in, so I'll try to help him when I can. And if I see the opportunity to damage boost him when he's high charge, I'll do it. A lot of people think Doomfist is unplayable. I don't think that's entirely true. I think he's very hard to play. He is played a lot in the APAC region. I see a lot of Doomfists in my games, but that's still not enough to warrant him to be higher on this tier list. A lot of times we'll get rolled because our tank is on Doomfist and he's just out of range for me to help him. Winston is next. Damage boosting Winston's jump landing is quite good actually, because good Winstons are able to do this jump landing melee combo where they melee just as they land. You actually can't see it in the animation, but it basically enables them to do a lot more damage. With secondary fire, he does more spam damage as well. So in theory, damage boosting a Winston can be really annoying for the enemy to deal with, but the issue is range and kill potential. He usually jumps out of range from Mercy to damage boost, and even with damage boost, his primary fire doesn't do that much damage. It's just annoying for the enemy, and likely you can find another hero with higher kill potential to damage boost. Then we have Ball, who honestly I forget is even in the game nowadays, just from how little he's played. Damage boosting Ball's slam and roll through the enemy team is good, but other than that, Ball suffers from the same problem as Winston, range. Ball will almost always play out of range, and if he's getting a lot of kills, it's likely that he's out of range. Remember, you can't damage boost his mines. Sombra is last in this tier. In season 1, Sombra was extremely strong, borderline broken, before she was nerfed for season 2. Sombra is actually great to damage boost when she hacks someone, because hack already makes it so that the target receives 25% more damage, and with the damage boost, she can quickly delete someone. The reason she's last in this tier is because it can actually be detrimental to pocket a Sombra. You can reveal her location if you beam her while she's invisible, and if you do beam her when she hacks someone and she teleports away, your beam still attaches to her, which could give away where she went. Plus, like all the other flankers, Sombra probably plays out of range from Mercy, so you won't get the opportunity to damage boost her. Remember, you can't damage boost her EMP. Finally, the last tier, which is a joke, but like not really. I have Torb. Sorry, I hate Torb. Good Torbs are really good, but most players aren't very good Torbs and mostly just rely on their turret to do damage and aren't very accurate with Torb's primary fire. Sometimes I'll damage boost his overload where he shoots some more, I guess, but it's not that worth it. I haven't ever pocketed a Torb and been like, oh wow, this Torb This Torb carried the game. This pocket Torb definitely made a difference in our victory. There's like never been a game like that for me. When you damage boost his ult, I mean, it's good that you can damage boost the impact of his ult, but most players are going to run away from the Torb ult impact anyway. If the enemy sees Torb ulting, they're not just going to stand there and let Torb hit them with his ult. They're going to run away. So damage boosting his ult, I mean, like, you can technically damage boost it, but it's so ineffective. So yeah, I don't really like Torb. If we could damage boost his turret, I would really like that. And now I have Lucio. I hate Lucio. I don't like Lucio. I hate Lucio. The only time I'll damage boost him is if it was an accident and I thought he was someone else, or if I'm flying back to spawn with him so he can switch to another hero. I don't think much explanation is needed for why Mercy is in last place. So that's my final tier list for season 2. I noticed that I have split it up a little differently from other tier lists I've seen. So what did you think? Do you agree, disagree, think it's stupid? Let me know. Also, I have a Discord now. I am offering free VOD reviews on the Discord that I may turn into a video. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and join. Thank you for watching.